Moving forward. Commission, we're looking to consider the commission meetings for minutes for August 29th. Is there a motion? So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right, the commission minutes for August 29th are approved. Just breezing along, right? So reports and presentations. Before, I'd like to do one thing, kind of switch the order around real quick, is can we do the marketing update first, since you have to leave at 9?
Yeah, thank you, Flores. I just wanted to point out the materials I left for you. This is our fall event guide that was inserted in City Views, which is mailed to every address in Hillsborough. So you have a copy of that. I left you the current issue of Hillsborough Arts Magazine. You'll see we made some changes to the format and the story types, and there's more coming along those lines. So very excited to share that with you. And then the last one is our Well Played, which is our quarterly update. This is for summer. So highlights all the events and activities that took place in June, July, and August, and it's just always packed. This, I think, is one of my favorite publications to put together, just because I love getting to read all the amazing programs and things that our staff are doing. So thank you, Forrest, for letting me squeeze that in.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. And then there is this postcard here that's up front that isn't here in the packets that Brian's going to be talking about. Yeah, he'll be talking about that in a little bit. So I just want to make sure you pick that up, that we didn't forget about that. Moving on to staff introduction.
So I'll start by introducing, having Scott Rucker do the first introduction, and in the meantime, traffic breaking news, the team is stuck in traffic.
Like to embellish, if it's not here, is that what I just heard?
Yes.
Yes, fantastic. Good morning, everybody. Wanted to take this opportunity and thank you very much to introduce Jenna Jula. Jula is our facilities coordinator up at Gordon Paper Recreation Complex, and she also works with our outside sports groups over at Fairgrounds, as well as some of the other parks in the area. So I wanted to give her the opportunity to tell you a little bit about her and not have me mess it up. So, Jenna?
Yeah. So yeah, I am a somewhat recent Portland State graduate. I have a BA in anthropology, and I've been working in Parks and Rec on and off since high school, so which was over 6 years ago for me now. But beyond that, I've been, sports have always been a huge part of my life. I definitely, attended sports classes and been a part of rec leagues my whole life. And so yeah, sports and recreation has always been a huge passion of mine. And so I'm really happy to be over here with the city now and working in the Parks and Rec department over here.
Well, thank you, Jenna, and just maybe a real quick overview of what's on your to-do list today.
Be here. No, today, Tuesdays are scheduling meeting day, so one of the tasks that I had to get done early, since I was going to be here this morning, was to put together our 2-week calendar for the stadium, and then we have our meeting where we go over that and catch any typos I may have had. So yeah, I will be heading after this commissions meeting. I'll be heading straight back over there and hopefully catching the tail end of that meeting. So yeah.
So yes, Jenna helps manage all of the scheduling for Orchard Paper Recreation Complex and other duties as assigned. Does a great job. Now, some of you may, if you were here for the grand opening of the new park, may not realize that this is the bee. I want to make it perfectly clear that even though last November, when our newest employee, John Wagon, was the turkey costume at the turkey trot, now Jenna was the bee at this. We officially, for the record, do not have a hazing policy. They happily volunteer to do these assignments, right, Jenna? So yes, she was buzzing around all day, and Jenna's been a great addition to the staff. So
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Where do you office from?
I'm over at the admin building. Yes, yeah, I'm right next to Mark Rundy and April Hamill and Shelley.
So she and Mark have, the similar job duties and titles, just divide up all the scheduling responsibilities. Working with the teams and the leagues and various other stakeholders.
As we transfer over to the 24 season, she'll be doing a lot more work with Matt Kolosinski with the Hawks. We'll be doing a lot more of that coordination. Mark's gonna move over to the stadium side for a little bit of change of pace for the work. She'll have that, she'll have tournaments, they divided everything up for good work-life balance throughout the whole year. She's not just one area, they set up that they need to do a big broad spectrum.
Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. Welcome aboard. More breaking news. Traffic was let up and we're gone. No, I gave it traffic before. So our next introduction will be led by Lori Prince, the manager out of Jackson Bottom Wetlands.
Good morning, everyone. This is a fantastic way to start my morning, so it's great to see your faces. I have the pleasure of introducing you to Eleanor Anderson. She joined our team out of Jackson Bottom on June 15th last year. So in that time between then and now, she's done tremendous things. She's our nature program coordinator. She works with our nature program supervisor, and essentially anything that's community outreach, engagement, school field trips, programming out there, summer camps, Eleanor is directly involved with. So she's done a fantastic job. She came to our Small Mighty team from the Cascade Pacific Council of Boy Scouts of America. She was a district director. Her talent is incredible. So she just has she's poised, she's positive. I mean, it doesn't matter what she's encountered over the time that I've gotten to work with her. A bus that's an hour late with 100+ students. She makes sure they have an incredible time. She'll jump in at the last minute and help with programs if she needs to. She makes balloon animals without.
That is a tough.
Yeah. So she's done an incredible amount of things as our team. And some of the things that she's created herself since she's joined, she's created a whole scout program where scouts can come and earn their badges out at the wetlands. She created a birthday party kit for folks if some of the kiddos in the community want to come out and have a unique experience at the wetlands. She's working on pulling the homeschooling groups into potential experiences as well. So she may be able to speak of a few other things that she wants to share as far as projects or unique experiences in our team over the last year.
I think that was pretty comprehensive. Other than that, summer camp, putting together summer camps. Summer was a big project, and with Scouts, we have a partnership event coming up this fall with the Girl Scouts, so they'll be coming out to the wetlands and doing a workshop with us, which will be really fun.
Yeah. Do you guys have any questions?
What is your favorite animal
Oh,
out of the wetland? No, it's a nutrient.
No, I mean, I love owls. I haven't seen any in the wetlands, so, but I know they're there, so, yeah.
Well, for the record too, Dave did ask for me possibly to dress in costume today, so it's
Oh,
a tradition across parks. So I just, along the lines of if she has to work in a team where we're wacky enough, it's just, she's brought this the perfect balance for us, so. If you guys ever want to come out and have an experience, or a tour or walkabout, and enjoy what I call the edge of tomorrow, which is not directly related to any movies or anything, but the Wild Yonder, please don't hesitate. Also, I brought some seeds and a little sticker and some rat cards that kind of highlight some of our programming coming up. Our team, we have some part-time educators that we're going to be rehiring in the spring. So while we're slim through spring, we still have some offerings and classes. So I'm gonna mention that too.
Good stuff, and I told Lori that we'll either have a meeting or a field trip that swings us by Jackson Bottom. It's certainly been since before COVID. We have a few new commissioners since then, so we'll go out and look for that owl and time the trip. accordingly for the best owl sighting.
Probably nice.
We're flexible.
Dry day.
Halloween.
Yeah.
Halloween, nighttime.
Actually, there will be owls at our spectacular event, so guaranteed owl sighting at our spectacular event on the 28th, so. Thank you very much.
October 28th.
Welcome to the
calendars.
team.
Thank you. Welcome. Okay, well, hey, I'll have Dale join us here, and that way he can talk better. We have a full table here this morning, so we'll get one more chair. So, Dale and I have been working on landing this opportunity for a few minutes of scheduling. Just for you. Yeah, exactly. Hey, lock the door. Yeah. Well choreographed. Right on cue. Anyway, Kale is here to talk about the hops plan for community use, and with that, I'll turn it over to Kale.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I just wanted to have an opportunity just to come and speak directly with the Parks Commission face to face and give a chance to answer any questions around our intent, the project, our history, anything like that. But start with a little bit of an overview, and first just want to just kind of commit the Parks Commission and Parks and Rec staff. We moved here in 2012 as a family. We lived in Yakima. I was with the team for 12 years in Yakima. Grew up in the Tacoma area, so we're Northwest people. But one of the things I'll never forget, the first time we came to Hillsborough, we toured the Hillsborough Stadium with our owners, the Anna Palm Chamber of Commerce, Mayor Willie, Aaron Carlson, Nick Gross, and a couple other people. And we were blown away at just how nice the complex was. Our Parks and Rec department in Yakima was not very well funded. They were cutting funding all the time. There wasn't a lot of great youth sports organizations and operations and opportunities. And when we came here, we were literally blown away. We couldn't believe how well the fields were manicured. We couldn't believe the stadium was like 10 years old because it was in such great shape. And we knew right away this is a city that takes care of their stuff and believes in quality of life. And at the time, we were looking at Beaverton, we were looking at Vancouver, Washington, we were looking at Milwaukee, we were looking at Gresham. And right away, we knew like this was the place that we wanted to live and raise our families and move the team. So we made that decision in 2012, and it's been a tremendous partnership for the last 10 years. We've worked really well with Parks and Rec as our landlord. We've had one conflict that was significant over the 10 years. A lot of it was on me with kind of how I understood the situation and how I reacted to the situation, and kind of learned from that. And I think the last year plus has been really smooth when it comes to scheduling and us trying to move our game times around if we can to make room for graduation or other opportunities. We've had a lot of events with major tournaments and hops games at the same time. We've been able to coexist just nicely. Last weekend was our last weekend, sellout crowds, and we had a huge softball tournament. It was awesome. I mean, the atmosphere around that complex when there's a tournament going on and the hops game is actually really, really cool. I had a friend whose daughter was playing for Blaze softball at one of the fields, and he brought his team over in between games, just kind of sucking it. Just so his daughters could see what's going on. We have a female manager, so for them it was a chance to come out and see a ponytail coaching third base and kind of inspiring to the girls. So opportunities like that are really cool, and it's what has created a situation where our desire is to try to stay on the campus. We went through a renovation, and quite frankly, we just couldn't figure out how to make it work. A lot of it had to do with the water line, the connection to the football stadium, and spending $100+ million, and then still having the connection to the football stadium, still having the full third base line exposed to sun, where you're just getting blasted by sun, and some other things. And so while the process to switch to a new ballpark probably could have been smoother in hindsight. I think both us and the city realized that, you know, we were under a lot of pressure to make some decisions. And if we could do it again, we probably would have done it a different way and incorporated more thoughts and ideas. Ever since we signed the deal with Major League Baseball in 2021 for the PDL, we've been under a tremendous amount of pressure to try to figure out this facility standards. It's literally night and day of us thinking about how we're going to solve this and preserve baseball and preserve this franchise for the next decades to come. You know, fortunately, I think we're on a good path right now. We hope we're on a good path. We are very committed to being in Hillsborough for a long time. We're very committed to making sure that we invest in this facility and we invest in loss of use and we invest in all these other things that are going to make this project great and make this community great. Our vision for the venue is really primarily Hops games. So a lot of it isn't going to change from how it operates today. We'll still have 66 Hop games, hopefully some playoff games again. A few D1 baseball games like we have now with Oregon State, actually with Oregon State UW, which would be really cool. And a lot of community use. So our vision is Little League opening days are there, and softball tournaments and baseball tournaments and high school baseball. We'd love to see every high school team in the metro area get to play one game there, because it would just be so inspiring for them to play on that field. Opening up our batting cages for youth teams to use in the off season for free, just as part of our community use when it comes to youth baseball. Since we've moved the team here, we've donated almost $1 million to youth baseball, softball organizations, as well as scholarships for first generation college students. So we've put a lot of money back into this community, and we expect to put a lot more back into this community when we move here. Our owners don't take distributions. They've never been in this to make a profit. And we're willing to finance about $82 million, well, $80 million to finance, $2 million to cash in this new venue, which is really unheard of in minor league baseball. We're the largest private investment by a minor league baseball team in a facility like this. So something we're really proud of. We wish we could do it all ourselves, quite frankly. We're in a hole right now, and we've got a little bit of a challenge to fill a funding gap that was in the media over the weekend. But we feel confident that we're going to find some good pathways. We've had great discussions with the state and the county, as well as the city, to figure out how we work together to make this facility fly. But you know, we're excited about what this facility can do for the community. We're excited about what our organization can continue to bring to Hillsborough and the region. You know, we're committed to being good partners. And I think that's one of the key things, and what we've been really attracted to stay in Hillsborough on is the deep partnership that exists. And even the way we're negotiating the lease, it's a true partnership spirit. It's not contentious. No one's drawing hard lines. You know, the city's laying out their priorities. We're laying out what priorities, and we're trying to find common ground. And I think it's been a really positive process. And I think our relationship with Scott and Mark and Dave and others in Parks and Rec, John, has been similar. You know, while we don't always see eye to eye, we don't always align perfectly. We try to find some common ground and understand each other's priorities, and try to make it work for the betterment of our community. So I'll stop there. It's a little bit of a rambling, but just wanted to get a few key points across and just see if there's any questions I can address.
Okay, we want to go around the room and see if there's any questions. Lynn?
No, not right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Or-
Raise my hand.
What's the backup plan with the recent articles that there isn't,
The backup plans.
if the funding doesn't?
So, that's a backup plan. Which is hard to say, but.
Can you expand on that? Because that was sort of my question too. I was concerned about that quote, this bill. That's what it said, you know, we can't get the 20 million, we're gone, no exceptions.
No, we didn't say we're gone.
Well, I'm keyed in, and that's
Yeah,
when I went, oh.
Yeah,
Okay, so
that's real.
can you respond? Yeah. you will be gone.
We
You
won't be
just said
gone.
so. Yeah, okay,
We're not moving the team.
okay.
We've already done it once. We're never doing it again.
Okay.
Our owners live here in Hillsborough, Rikers Station. I live here in Rikers Station. We're not going anywhere. My daughter's in 8th grade, going into high school. We're good. But we would put the team on the market to sell the team. And the new owner would have to move the team because they can't play in the existing facility anymore.
Thank you.
And I think we all, I don't know if we all, but I think a lot of people in the community understand how great our owners are, Mike and Lauren McMurray. They're community people. A new owner is not going to have the same attitude as them. The new owner is not going to put in near the amount of money in the facility that they want to do. So we want to do everything we can to make sure we preserve the current.
No questions at the moment. No questions.
All right, going up there on the screen, Dana? Chris?
Oh,
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Chris.
Oh.
Okay, how's that? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Heather.
Okay, first of all, Kale, thank you for coming in. My name's Chris Cardoni, I'm one of the commissioners here, and I work in Portland, so sometimes it's hard for me to attend personally. I'd rather be there personally, but I've got some commitments. So I think by talking to Raheem and maybe Dave and others, I think you understand that this has been quite a contentious issue within our little commission here. We advise the city on things involving property that we manage. We don't do much. We don't have a lot of authority. We're advisory, but this is right in our wheelhouse. And so my first question, I mean, it's great to see you come in and talk about the community benefits and what the owners do. And I understand that it's part of the real fabric of Hillsborough. It has become part of the fabric to be able to attend MLB right here in our backyard. But one of the real sore spots that I have, and I think my fellow commissioners share to some degree, is we never had a meeting like this. It would have been nice to see somebody from the Hops to come in and talk to us about the change from let's just go with an upgrade of Ron Tonkin to what seemed to be, to us, and it was a very quick and unguided decision on that's not going to work. We needed 2 of your fields. And so it seems like that's a discussion that really should have been dropped in our lap and a thoughtful consideration before people moved ahead on that, because it affects so much of what we do. So first of all, we are frustrated, and I don't think we've ever had a really good explanation as to why we were just completely omitted from that discussion, and then it just got dropped, and we saw a public announcement that we're going to build a new field. So disappointing on that. And before we get your comments, just a couple of other things. Spinning off of that, this is hugely disruptive to our staff. All of the games and tournaments and the disruption that's going to be caused at a minimum by just the construction and not having fields available, even as new fields possibly go up. It's consumed staff. We would be, we have a lot of other things we want to do. We want to build a swimming pool. And we have other things that we're unable to move forward on because this has just sucked the air out of the Parks and Rec Commission staff. And so that's been frustrating as well. And then the third thing is this cost thing, this loss of use. When whoever decided, the city decided in consultation with you to take the 2 fields offline, 2 great fields, that's a cost. And after much gnashing of teeth and field visits to other parts of the city, we've come up with these 2 fairly remote but on-site parts of Gordon Faber, which 2 fields can go in at great cost. And so the question remains, and I understand the struggles you've had with funding, why should the city fund this when it's really a business decision by the Hops that the upgrade to Ron Tonkin isn't going to work? why should the city at all be directly or indirectly involved with helping you construct those fields when we want to use money for competing things like building a pool and all? And so that's some of the struggles that we have within the commission here is if this is the best business decision to build these build a new field on top of 2 existing fields, that's going to be hugely disruptive and hugely costly. If people are going forward with that plan, okay, but why should we pay for it? Why should the citizens pay for any of this change? So those are my comments, and I'll shut up right now and let you respond, Kale. Thank you.
Lots to unpack, so I'll try to, my memory isn't as good as it used to be. Let's do good. So I think as far as the process, I mean, I tried to address that at the front end too. I mean, you're absolutely right. It would have been probably way more productive for us to try to come to the Parks and Rec Commission and there could have been a much better process on how the decision was made. I think as we all look in the rearview mirror, we would have done it differently had we known the sensitivities and known that this would get so contentious. I think we would have tried to be more collaborative. The time frame and the lack of time to make decisions was very real. We were under a lot of pressure from Major League Baseball when we got to the 10% design of the renovation and realized that it was not going to be a very cost-effective solution, and quite frankly, probably wouldn't have happened. I don't think we could have generated enough additional revenue to justify the private funding we were going to put into the renovation. I don't think it would have worked, quite frankly, because the construction costs we saw at 10% were just so astronomical. So at that point, it was either we have to move the team somewhere else, whether it's within the city or it's in the metro or it's somewhere else, or we try to find a solution that can keep us on the campus. And so that's where a lot of that decision came from, was let's try to keep the team on campus if possible. We have the parking, people know how to get there. Softball fields are less expensive to build than the stadium. So if we could relocate a couple softball fields, those aren't, tens of millions. It's not cheap. I'm not going to downplay it at all, but so that was kind of some of the background of decision making, and it was a quick. We had to, because MLB thought we were going to renovate. The deadline to meet standards was 2023. We were able to get a variance to 2024, and with substantial progress, we're expecting the variance to 2025. So the renovation would have put us in that 2024 timeline. Once we switched, they needed a decision right away. Okay, what's the path forward? So, it was just the pressure we were under, the time frame we were under. The other part, as far as the cost of the fields and everything else, we totally understand, and I'm not going to dispute one word you said on that. I know that the city has a lot of different priorities, and the city and the Parks and Rec Commission, Parks and Rec have choices to make, and some of those choices might benefit the hops, some of those choices might not benefit the hops, and we can live with either. Our goal is to be a collaborative partner with the city and try to find the best solutions forward. And hopefully we can create some scenarios where it's a lot of ands instead of a lot of ors. So can we do this new stadium and build new fields? Can we build this new stadium and build new fields and build a pool? Can we start, can we do it all at once? No, we can't. But can we lay some things out to where, I don't know how we can help drive solutions everywhere, but our goal is to be the best partner that we can with the city and Parks and Rec to try to make sure that we can do everything we want to do and make this community great. So, yeah, I'll just talk. Maybe that.
Well, thank you. I had a question too, and it was about some of the community organizations. I thought I read an article about Glencoe High School. Did the Hops do something with them too? What was it?
We we partnered on a turf project there to build a youth field. So it was, I don't know what it was now, 5 or 7 years.
Like the
ago.
main baseball field there?
Yeah, it's actually off the baseball field. So if you drive by the logo on the field, it's right on Glencoe Road.
Okay.
But we used our Hillsborough Hops Fund, which is our nonprofit. And at the time, Ben Dietrich was a former MLB guy, played at Glencoe High School, coached for us. And so that was the connection to Glencoe, the Park School District. Yeah.
Any other questions? Chris, Dana? Great. Well, thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Okay. 3.3, informational item.
That is Raheem
Raheem.
and Cindy.
Raheem and Cindy.
Well, Cindy's pointing to Raheem and Raheem's pointing.
Or Ken as well.
Oh, maybe I can give a quick overview
Sure, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
and then kind of appreciate it from you. This is more of an informational item for the Parks Commission. There's no action needed. One of the things we worked on a couple of years ago was to try to get a better awareness across all commissions, boards, and the city council of the rates that our residents pay. And more for the purpose of awareness when we start thinking about changing fees or modifying fee structures. We wanted to make sure that the decision-making bodies have a full awareness of the impact is in our community as opposed to just their individual fee. So where the Parks Commission comes in is there's a South Hillsborough Community Service Fee, which is specifically just for South Hillsborough that shows up on some utility bills. And those utility bills are the ones in South Hillsborough. You all get to recommend the fee. So that's how the Parks Commission is involved in this process. You'll see fees on here from Clean Water Services as well. We are essentially a billing mechanism for them to collect their fees within our community because they provide a service for our community members. And it shows all the other fees. So for example, our water fee that's set by the Utilities Commission. This year, we also included fees for garbage. Even though we don't necessarily have garbage services through a franchise agreement that we have with different providers. That's on here for your awareness. And we also added Highlight. Highlight's not available everywhere in our community yet, but just for an awareness of what people can be expected to pay should they choose to sign up for Highlight. So that's just the context for why you have this, and maybe Ken or Cindy, anything else to add?
Just a couple of things to add. So on the community service fee itself, just for some background from when we were commissioners, essentially when South Hillsborough was being developed, we had to make sure that we had sufficient SDCs for Parks and Recreation from that community coming in for us to build the neighborhood and community parks down in that area. So we had a very long process to kind of figure that all out back in 2015, 2016, I believe. And part of that process, part of the funding package that was developed in order to provide all those parks included this community service fee, which was essentially designed to bring in roughly 25% of the total cost of delivering all of our parks in that area over a 25-ish year timeframe. And so what that looks like is it's, as Renee mentioned, it's on the utility bill, it's monthly for all residents down there that are part of been annexed, I guess, at this point in time, because some properties haven't, so they don't pay that fee at this point in time, but at some point they will. At the time, back in 2016, I believe it was implemented at around $12.50 or so per month. And it was given an automatic 3% escalator. So every year it increases 3%. So if any of you are wondering, why haven't we had a vote on this or had to hear about this or think about it, it's because it's just been kind of a set and forget type of fee. And so unlike other fees like the water rates and things like that go before their boards and commissions for approval and adoption every year, the community service fee for Parks and Recreation is just automatic. It's just 3% every year and it just kind of happens on its own. So, but because we do have a number of homes in the area now, we have had some revenues coming in over the past couple of years. I want to say we're somewhere around $1 million maybe total overall the year at this point. Hopefully it'll continue to grow and grow as more homes are developed over time. And that will be used one day to help fund whether it's the indoor community center down there or the community park or the parks and things like that. So just some background.
Has there been any backlash? Have the citizens complained or said anything?
So it's been
Or
in
are they-
place for about 7 years, and I want to say in the 7 years, I think I've personally seen maybe 2 or 3 emails that came into the city, typically to City Hall, but then reaches out to Parks and says, hey, can you respond to this person's asking for? And we always respond, here's what the fee is, here's why we collect it, and here's what it will be used for. And nobody ever seems to have an issue from that point. So.
Right.
Maybe one more last thing to add. We started this initiative to make sure that there's a greater awareness of how these fees are developed and how we have these increases and all that. We also wanted to look at it from a community perspective, right? Most of our community members get a utility bill. They don't get a water bill. They don't get a parks bill.
Thank goodness.
But one of the things is, you'll see it in this memo at a high level of these recommendations that we wanted to take on. We also wanted to like streamline things on our end internally for our organization. Perfect example is like in January of every year, we would increase our water rates. And then in July, we would go in, I'd say increase, but change our water rates. We would then go in and do a separate process with our stormwater rates in July. We go through the same process and duplicate all the engagement with our community. But frankly, at the end of the year, it's like the community sees you increasing my bill 2 times a year. It's not really about water or storm or sewer. So we also aligned all these increases to happen at the same time so that we're talking to our community at the same time about here's what that one increase is on utility bill. So that required some change in when the parks 3% gets implemented. I believe it moved to a January date, correct?
We deferred it for 6 months, yes, just to align it.
So that was one other impact to the parks, South Hillsborough community service fee. Apart from that, it's just making sure we're talk as one voice as a city.
So without going too far down a hole on this question, Parks and Rec uses water to water the grass.
A lot of it. Yeah.
Is that an internal thing, or does Parks and Rec actually pay a water bill?
So the general fund actually pays the water funds for the use of that water. So yes, Parks and Recreation is given appropriations in its budget from the general fund, which then pays the water fund for the water.
So like in that area over there, South Hillsborough, there's like lots of grassy areas being put in. As we design parks, are we like looking to limit or use things that take less water, or
So we
stormwater drainage things? Because I don't see a lot of that going on. Like
the stormwater, the water quality facilities, they typically call
like
them.
the, I don't know what you call, like, you'll be somewhere and it like drains into the rocks, and then they have like the thing, the big ditch with the rocks, and then it drains somewhere else, and so it never hits the street kind of deal, those kind of things. I don't know what you
So
call
I think we're kind of maybe talking about 2 different things. I guess to answer your first part of the question is yes, as we design and develop new parks, we try to be water conscious and try to make good decisions in terms of what we're planting, how we're planting, where we're planting. We're also right now, the city's investing lots of money into our irrigation system as a whole to upgrade it, to make it better, to also implement software that will allow us to better analyze where and when and how to be watering in our parks, which will hopefully save us money and water in the long run. We try to make sure that we choose the appropriate species of plants and things that might not need as much water. We also try to be cognizant of how much of the new park to plant in grass versus landscaping beds and things like that to minimize water use. But at the end of the day, when people think about parks, one of the first things that comes to mind is green grass. So we also recognize that the community expects nice grassy areas to play in and enjoy. And so it's one of those things that we do just have to account for, and we do have to just do our best to conserve, but also provide.
There is a large patch of grass back here we do hope to eliminate.
With a big pool.
When was that, Dave? Like next year?
Yeah, Jerome's out of town, so we'll move it up on the CIP for him.
Okay.
Actually, we can claim to conserve water by doing that.
Cindy, anything else that we missed?
No, I think that covered it very well. Thank you. And I'll just know, I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary. So still, I'm in the weeds and so thank you for covering this one because this one's still a little, I think you both did a great job speaking to it.
And she means anniversary of the city, by the way, just to make that.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any questions on utility rates, the city, like our facilities also pay utility fees. So like Dave and Ken mentioned about the water. We are billed for water, we pay them. We also are billed for our stormwater fees, sewer fees and all that. So we kind of treat ourselves the same way.
And the reason is just due to the revenue sources. General fund obviously is primarily tax based. And so the water fund is not. Water fund is water rates. And so the general fund pays for its use of the water.
So that this tag on for South Hillsborough, is it, it goes into a dedicated fund and can only be spent on like capital things? Is that accurate, or could it be maintenance of those parks?
So the way that it was designed was to ultimately be flexible. The intended purpose at this point in time is to build up a fund for capital expenses. If in 20 to 25 years, the decision is made by the city to repurpose that for something different, that is part of how it's designed to be used that way, but that would be decision making.
Yeah, so right now, it's just building.
Right now, it's just trying to recover essentially $25 million in total revenue to help with development of the indoor recreation center and parks and stuff.
Great, thank you. Let's see, moving right along, let's see, 3.4, urban forestry plan.
I'll let, yes, well, first of all, yeah, welcome to the table today for Steve Goldgren, who's been our staff for, gosh, a couple of years now and full-time employee for almost a year. And one of the things we put on Steve's plate was doing this urban forestry study. Him and I started talking about urban forestry a few years ago, where Parks Department submitted a request for an urban forestry position. And I'll let Raheem talk a little bit about that. That's actually was approved in this last 2-year budget cycle, so that's coming our way. This work was in motion, so it'll blend into that person's portfolio. So Steve did a great job because he has the background in this with urban forestry. And then Raheem can maybe speak lightly right now to the urban forestry program, which is a combination city position. It doesn't necessarily land, the position doesn't land in the Parks and Recreation Department. I believe Public Works is the home base, but all cities use that position to serve all the departments that have those needs. So with that in mind, anything to add to that, Raheem?
No, just, Dave and the rest of the parks team have been a big advocate for having a formalized urban forestry program. I mean, we do urban forestry work in bits and pieces across. Trustee will talk about it. But we wanted to make sure we took a programmatic approach in setting up something across the city. A big part of it is having an urban forester to lead this work. The challenge is funding, like everything else. And we found a way to fund this position using non-general fund revenues, because there is a nexus to stormwater benefit with having an urban forestry program. So we have some stormwater funds that can fund the ongoing services. And then there's obviously a benefit to maintaining trees within our right of way. So we're using some transportation funding to help pay for the position. We will be recruiting it here shortly. But it's like Dave mentioned, it's not a position that's just for one department. It's a citywide position that all of us can tap into to implement a program that we are all going to be developing, which is what you'll see here. There are things that the Parks Department will be doing, and then there'll be things that other departments will be doing to implement this program.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. It's very exciting to give you an update on phase 1 of the urban forestry management plan. I've been a practicing landscape architect for almost 35 years, but prior to that, I did receive a degree in forestry. So when Dave came to me and kind of offered me the chance to be part of this project, I was very excited about it because deep in my heart, there's a little forester in there. So I've been the staff lead and I've been working with Chris Piper, and he's the project manager for Planet Geo. They're the consulting firm that we hired. Chris is on the East Coast, and that's why he's via Zoom today. But so just as a little bit of a refresher, and for the new commissioners, phase one was all about understanding, where the city is at, kind of what Raheem was touching on. There's so many departments that touch trees within the city. So phase one was all about finding that baseline and understanding what departments do what, where the funding is, but also looking deeper and move forward with phase two. That's where you actually develop the plan. So you got to understand where you're at to move beyond to develop the plan. So again, I was here about a year ago, talked about those tasks that Planet Geo was going to do, and then Chris's presentation will go over the tasks that have been completed and the information that was gathered. I talked about how important it was to do a phase one, trees in a community. There's so many benefits that trees provide to community, ecological, environmental, economical, health, safety, aesthetics. Trees touch so many parts of the community. And one of the traits of a healthy community is to have a healthy urban forest. And that's kind of why it's so important, because it touches everything in the community. I also talked about some of the challenges that we'll be facing in doing an urban forest management plan. There's challenges with development, residential, commercial, industrial. As more development is happening, like in South Hillsborough, in some cases, trees are removed, and although the street trees are put back due to city code, maybe there's really a net loss that happens of trees that got removed to build that development. So there's a development aspect. Climate change is a big thing. I think I read recently that August was the second hottest month ever recorded in the United States. So that's obviously on people's minds, and how do you, climate can affect trees, it can stress trees, and then that leads to pests and diseases for trees. And we know that the emerald ash borer has now showed up next door in Forest Grove. It's eminent that it will be here, so we need to start thinking about the future and how we're going to deal with that as we move forward. And then there's the private trees versus public trees. Public trees, street trees, right-of-ways, parks, but then there's private trees, which is the bulk of where the trees are in a community's urban forest. So how can we work with codes and ordinances to help maintain that or increase that urban forest? So a lot of things that are really important that were done in the phase one, and again, Chris will highlight those. We gave you a copy of his presentation because some of the slides had some smaller font, but we also kind of asked Chris, because it's a pretty lengthy presentation, we've asked Chris to kind of go through it quickly. So we wanted you to have the presentation so you can really take a deep dive. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Chris, and he'll run through the presentation, and then afterwards we can have any questions or answer any questions that you may have. So Chris.
All right, thank you, Steve, and thank you, commission members, for the opportunity to present on the phase one urban forest study. We also call this the phase one urban forest management plan. And as Steve mentioned, my name is Chris Piper. I'm the director of urban forestry consulting services at Planet Geo, and coming up on 9 years with the company. And for this project, I was the project manager to do the study. And I will say that with about 50 of these types of planning projects in those years, Hillsborough is going at urban forest management with a strong approach, looking at this phase one, assessing what you have before diving into a program or diving into a comprehensive management plan. It was a really enjoyable experience to learn about the details and the workflows and priorities facing trees and the urban forest. So appreciate the opportunity to work on this project. And so with this presentation, like Steve said, there's a lot of detail in the report and the presentation itself. And I'll just keep our presentation brief with a summary of these 4 categories, getting into why conduct urban forest management planning and what was the approach for this phase 1 study. And then what were our findings from our planning processes that led into the development of recommendations in the report, and how this could support future planning efforts around trees in Hillsborough. And then we want to make sure that we have time for open discussion and address questions you have around the presentation, but also the report, so that we can do our final edits and prepare the final delivery. And so when I talk about urban forestry and these types of projects, I like to kick things off with this quote from a model of urban forest sustainability. And to paraphrase, it just reads that a sustainable urban forest requires a shared commitment from the city as well as its partners. And that, like other city infrastructure, it requires proper management and planning. And this phase 1 study can really provide that baseline assessment for that long-term management. And when we talk about urban forest management, one of the overarching goals is for the urban forest to maximize long-term benefits, both sustainably and equitably. And so these and many other benefits support Hillsborough's environment, economy, and the community. And so the report expands on these types of benefits that trees provide and how proper management and best practices can maximize these. But when we plan for trees and communities, we also need to recognize those challenges, both the challenges that are across the country when you look at climate change, pests and diseases such as emerald ash borer, and the demands for the growth in populations and that competition for space. In urban areas, oftentimes there's competition with other infrastructure, other priorities, and the benefits of trees and the value and the aesthetics that trees provide in communities. And so the phase 1 effort starts to explore and examine these shared challenges across departments and how a comprehensive management plan could look to balance those priorities to achieve similar outcomes and desired long-term vision. So recognizing those benefits that trees provide, as well as the challenges that are already existing and are forecasted in the long term, Hillsborough initiated this phase 1 study. And this study applies the fundamental framework of adaptive management. So the following slides are going to talk a little bit about how these questions were addressed with the scope of work for the phase 1 study. And to understand Hillsborough's urban forest, the extent of trees, and the management frameworks were assessed. And those assessments, the outcomes of that, were utilized to develop recommendations that can address the challenges and the opportunities, whether through future projects, plans, or future programs and services. So with the phase 1 study, we identified the scope of work and the specific planning process to complete the assessment to inform future planning efforts. And so it included a top-down look at tree canopy cover citywide, as well as looking at the existing frameworks and conducting interviews with internal stakeholders. We also conducted a review of existing community frameworks, programs, perceptions, and priorities. We did benchmarking research, evaluations of tree-related ordinances, and a comprehensive gap analysis or audit. And then we pulled this information together for a draft report and presentation such as the one this morning. And so my following slides are going to present the findings from our planning process as part of phase 1. So these primary tasks summarize the flow of presenting the findings from our phase 1 study. And then this all leads up into the final report and the final supporting studies that are delivered with the project. So beginning with research and analysis, this research consisted of gathering and reviewing 22 unique resources in the city and the region. And this gives us an understanding of the context, as well as existing priorities, programs, policies in the city, and efforts that may conflict or support sustainable urban forest management. So many of the goals and policies that these plans support include urban forestry and trees in the community. And one thing that we wanted to call out with this brief presentation is the city's comprehensive plan's natural resource policy, and specifically number 4.1 that looks to promote efforts to improve the quantity, quality, and distribution of Hillsborough's urban forests through plans and investments. And so from our analysis, as well as looking at regional data, we examined the various types of benefits and services provided by trees in communities, because it's really important to look at, like I said, maximizing that long-term benefit, both sustainably and equitably. And so this study, this graphic was recreated from Tree Keepers of Washington County. And we start to look at the benefits of trees cooling the city, as well as reducing surface temperatures. And we look at the tree's role in improving air quality and providing oxygen, as well as the economic value that trees provide in terms of bolstering property values and reducing utility bills. Trees also play a vital role, as demonstrated with the funding source, in stormwater management, reducing the runoff and improving water quality. And with a comprehensive public tree inventory, these values can be specifically calculated for Hillsborough's trees. In addition to individual trees, the citywide tree canopy cover was assessed, where we used high-resolution imagery. And with this study, we found that 18% of the city is shaded by the canopy of trees when viewed from above. So to think about what 18% looks like, that's equivalent to over 2,300 professional football fields of canopy if you were to combine it all together. Now, it should be noted that 46% of the city is impervious area. So that means that the land cover is either a parking lot, a roadway, a building, or other hard surface that may contribute to surface temperature increase, stormwater runoff, lower air quality issues, and things like that. One other note to make is that in an 8-year time frame, canopy did decline by 1%. So the phase 1 report and a separate canopy cover report provide additional details around this core metric for urban forestry planning, canopy cover. Those reports detail the extent of tree canopy by various zoning types, the role that the natural resource areas in the cities have in terms of canopy cover and preservation, as well as looking at more closely at where that canopy cover change occurred in that 8-year time frame. So this phase 1 study also gathered input and gathered the feedback from city stakeholders. And we first conducted a survey where 20 staff participated in these surveys between February and April of this year. These are some of the departments that were involved in the survey, along with their role in the city. Categorized and summarized with a view or lens on trees in the community, but this gives us a sense of how their programs interact with trees in Hillsborough. We then took a look at the challenges that are shared across departments, and some of the recurring challenges look at budgets, protocols, preparedness planning, the impact of climate change, roles and responsibilities, as well as strengthening collaboration and partnerships. And when asked about the top priorities now and in future planning, some of those included the look at improving best management practices, as well as goals and strategies that address climate change, and more trees in the city, but with a plan and resources for taking care of them. And so the next slide just summarizes from our meetings and follow-up interviews some of the strengths, challenges, and desired outcomes of this phase 1, as well as future planning efforts relating to trees in Hillsborough. And just to mention that the ones in yellow were some of those recurring themes, as well as from our perspective, what may be the top 5 that if you only had a handful to choose from, what are the areas to emphasize or to address? So as Steve said, we also took our baseline assessment and compared that with analogous communities in the region. And we had city staff weigh in on those best matches for doing comparisons. And so the study groups included these that are listed on the slides. And I will say, we use the Tree City USA database as a starting point because there's consistent reporting around urban forestry metrics. And we have data on over 3,700 communities with that urban forestry data. So this just gives one example of how we looked at the metrics by comparison groups. Hillsborough is on the far left in blue. We have the 5 best matches with input from city staff on those cities for comparison. And then we have Oregon and Washington Tree City USA averages, and then those same Tree City communities, but only the ones with a similar population size. So it starts to give us an understanding of what is currently being conducted and where some potential targets may lie that could be addressed with an urban forest management plan. And these slides here just give you some snapshots. There's a separate benchmarking report, and it's integrated into the final report. But we look at some of the budgets for activities that are consistent across nationwide urban forestry programs, from planting, maintenance, removal, and overall program management, and then how that budget looks when compared to a per capita budget. We also looked at the activities because that can give us an idea when you look at number of trees and population size, how those budgets compare to the activities that are performed on the ground. And as Steve said, one of the foundational elements of an urban forestry program are those regulations and ordinances around trees. And so what we did is we used a systematic evaluation of the ordinances and came up with a summary recommendation where this summary table shows that there were 4 categories and there were 59 unique criteria within those that were evaluated. In the bottom far left, you see that 23 criteria require no action or change, and 13 are priority 1 categories that we recommend be evaluated if the city pursues changes to tree-related ordinances in the future. So now that we've conducted the research, internal engagement, benchmarking, data analyses, we pull this all into a culmination and a comprehensive evaluation of the urban forest in Hillsborough. And so we use this indicators of a sustainable urban forest evaluation system. And so we look at 130 unique categories that are then summarized with these 30 unique indicators, and we score each of those based on the results of our planning process. So from that evaluation, we have an understanding of the strengths and the opportunities as it relates to the trees, the programs that manage the trees, and the people that help shape and benefit from the urban forest. And so just for some perspective, I've completed about a little over 20 of these types of audits, and the results are in line with expectations, given that the city is beginning to formulate an urban forestry program. You have that overarching canopy cover assessment that can really guide sustainable urban forestry. So the areas that scored low could potentially be addressed in a long-term management plan, and you can leverage the strengths, the areas that scored high, by continuing the efforts and addressing those in a management plan. So lastly, to summarize the recommendations in the report, we broke it up into 3 intervals because there's still more assessment and planning to be done in order to guide the urban forestry program. But we hope that these recommendations can serve to develop future programs, services, and a long-term comprehensive plan like an urban forest management plan. So the following just summarizes by those 3 intervals. And so we look at ways in which you can utilize the findings from phase 1 to raise awareness. Where were the strengths or the gaps that were uncovered with phase 1, and start to look at what would a scope and budget look like for a long-term comprehensive plan, and to make sure that there's coordination with stakeholders and partners in drafting that plan. So in developing a management plan, the scope, budget, framework, and the implementation means and methods should be defined for a successful long-term plan. And lastly, the long-term plan would guide the next steps, but with this phase one, we do recommend that at minimum, the results be communicated and that the city and its partners track and monitor implementation so that this plan is a living document that can reach that shared vision for the urban forest, as I paraphrase with that quote at the beginning from the model of urban forest sustainability. And so that's a rundown of the phase one approach, looking at the purpose of doing these types of studies, as well as the findings from our different planning elements that fed into the comprehensive evaluation, leading up to the recommendations in the report. And so there's a lot of information in this presentation, as well as the report and supporting studies. And so I'll pause here and see if the group has any questions around the presentation or the project in general. And just want to thank everyone for your time and attention.
I have a question. Hear me okay, Chris?
Yes, and I was just pausing to see if the commission has a certain process for questions and answers, but I'm open to any questions you all have.
Yeah, we'll just go around the room. Chris, go ahead.
Sorry if I was going out of order, Forrest. I can't see the whole group. But one question I had is, a lot of the trees are not on publicly owned lands. They're on privately owned HOAs and private residences and such. In your work, how do you account for the fact a lot of the trees that may be in danger or in need of help may be on privately owned land when you can only really affect the publicly owned land? How does that work?
Yeah, it is a common concern. And when we do canopy assessments, most times the most canopy is on private land, as well as the opportunity for expanding. And so what we oftentimes look at is those regulations and ordinances that are in place that look at tree preservation, protection, mitigation, and planting. And not just going at it from an enforcement and regulation standpoint, but also education. It's key, especially with limited resources, raising awareness, the benefits, the value, the existing protocols and procedures in place with trees in the community, and the best practices. So partnerships, education, regulation, and then in some cases, cities look at exploring cost share programs for maybe economically challenged areas that if they maintain their street tree that's adjacent to their property, what are some cost share opportunities? If it's on private property or the property owner is not responsible for tree care, that goes back to the education and resources and, recommending that a certified arborist be involved with the tree care practices. One other comment, a citywide canopy goal is oftentimes a driving factor in, building that support around trees in the communities, that we're planting and preserving and growing the urban forest together with that shared commitment.
Great. Going around the room in here. Lynn?
Well, I would just make a comment, and I remember vividly a year ago when you were here and started presenting this, and we were all very excited and on board. And since then, in this year, I've got to commend you. I am a research nerd myself, and this presentation, what you've done in this year, is really commendable. Thank you. Thank you.
Chris and his firm are the leading urban forestry firm in the country, and they, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but I think you're doing work over in Europe too, your firm. They are the top-notch firm in the country, and they do these all the time, and they've got this whole plan down and this whole system down. So it's been a tremendous pleasure to work with Chris and his team.
Yeah, well, we're excited to see where we go.
Okay. Bart? Erin?
No, just thank you. It's a very thorough presentation.
I have a few questions.
So I was driving down the road a little while ago and I noticed a really large tree that was getting cut down. Are there regulations in place that stop that when it's on private land, or are there, like, I guess it was like a big, I don't know, it was at the Walmart on Cornelius Pass.
Was it in a commercial property
Yeah.
or? Yeah,
So is there?
I'm not sure where it was on the commercial property, but.
It's just in their parking lot. It's a really big old tree, you know, like, can't put your arms around the trunk of it, but, will there be in the future, like, through the planning department or things like protections against like maybe larger trees that are identified as?
Yeah, and that's what kind of Chris
Yeah.
was referencing, specifically when it pertains to trees on private property. Yeah, the city does have some codes in place that kind of cover that. I don't know if that tree had reached its end of life and that's why it was taken down. It could have been, maybe it wasn't designed and planned for properly to make, protect it when the parking lot was built. I don't know, but the city does have codes that certainly protect mature trees. But in Chris's analysis and working through city codes and ordinances, there certainly are some opportunities that the city can pursue to do a better job of protecting trees on private property. So that's part of what was identified in phase 1, can be looked at in the future in a phase 2 to increase and protect more trees, especially on private property.
With the surveys completed, can you tell like the larger trees from the survey? Like, for example, there's a neighborhood over by Jones Farm, and there's this a huge tree in an older home's front yard. It's the whole front yard. Like, if they don't want to invest in professional maintenance, or will there be programs to help them too?
Well, Chris, can you answer that question on the UTC? Can they, can that resolution tell how big? I know it's the canopy cover, but can they tell how big? I mean, I suppose if you really zoom in, you can kind of see how big trees are.
Yeah, the short answer is that it's possible. What we present in a final report and the online canopy tool does not look at the largest canopy trees individually, but we are able to pull that out from the raster data, the GIS data that's generated. You can also find the tallest trees, which is really cool because we worked with a community in Washington to use that as a baseline for establishing a heritage tree program. Potentially, these are the tall, significant trees that might be qualified for such a program. So going back to the short answer, it's in the data, it's just not really presented outward, but a GIS specialist could tease that out.
Yeah, and whether the city would get involved in something like that. Certainly, maybe there's an opportunity there to try to preserve it.
Right. And then my last question, how often is the canopy, that snapshot, how often are we planning on having that redone? So is there a way to say like this development here, they logged this whole area, so it impacted our canopy cover by 1%, or can we, how often will we be able to?
So Chris, the UTC is based on current aerial photography, right? I mean, so you did the comparison from 2012 to 2020. 2012 was the last time you had current aerial photography that you could look at, and then you could compare it to now. So it's kind of dependent on that, correct?
Right, yeah. So what we did was we looked at the best high resolution 4-band imagery to do that assessment, along with LiDAR, which is elevation data, so we can really hone in on canopy. And what we found was 2020 was the best imagery, and then to do a historical change, 2012 was the best quality to compare apples to apples. The really cool thing about canopy assessments, I've been doing these since like 2010, and the technology has gotten so much better. It's a lot cheaper to reassess canopy. So there are now subscription services that every 2 years you automatically can get your canopy reassessed, and you can identify where those loss and gains were with 96 to 98% accuracy. generally, 5 to 10 years is like the standard for reassessing, but just wanted to point out that technology is improving where it's efficient to reassess more frequently.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'll just add a real quick comment. I can share with you later just via email that, you know, my awareness and interest in this whole topic and drones as well came from the years we were in Vancouver. And that started in the late 90s. Same was where Hillsborough is now. No urban forester on staff. And they hired half-time, and that became full-time. Today, that's like 3 full-time positions. They have an urban forestry commission. And so a lot of cities are far ahead of where we are in Hillsborough. He certainly recognized the same thing. So when we brought this idea as a citywide position, it should just hopefully grow over time so that this is a serious thing that we're really dealing with. So I think this is a great first step. There's a lot of work to do. Parks Commission is one of the touch points in terms of keeping you involved in how this planning is going. So, and Steve, thank you for the great work you've done. And Chris, thank you for the great work that you've all done. And like Lynn said, getting us this far along.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. It goes a long way having Steve help coordinate and for all the stakeholders to weigh in, because we know what may be best for an urban forest, but we need to hear from staff and stakeholders on what's a priority and what's working well and what we can look to address. So I want to thank the city and its stakeholders' involvement too.
You know, maybe one other real quick point I'll add is that the Parks Commission has had 2 touch points with trees in the last 10 years that I can think of. Maybe there's more. One of them was what is now Jerry Willie Plaza at Arento Station. And the 2 big oak trees that are still there, well, there was 3, and one of them was determined to not be in good enough health, so that was taken down. The original plan was to remove all 3. That was the parks plan. And then the citizen engagement led by Dan Bloom, who lives in Arento, the Parks Commission got involved and urban foresters got involved. The Park Commission even went there for an on-site meeting. We all talked and walked and learned. And the decision was made to keep the 2 healthy trees. Okay, that's one example of a Parks Commission direct interaction. The other one is Century Oaks Park in South Hillsborough. There's a lot of trees missing in South Hillsborough. But one woman in particular wanted her 5 acres to be preserved, to not be another housing development or any type of she wanted it to be a park. And I worked personally very closely with her. And we had a very, very positive relationship. And she sold to us at a more reasonable cost than she would have been able to sell to the developer. And we were able to keep the trees and build a park inside of it. And that actually started one day when I went over there. She and I just stood in the middle of her property and walked around, and she said, "Tell me what your vision is for this." So I explained, well, we keep these trees, we build around it, we take, a view. And anyway, it just resonated, and we honored her at a Parks and Recreation Commission meeting a few years ago. So those are just two small examples, but there's just more of those to come in the years ahead.
I guess that's one question I have is how do we see our community engaging with this like forestry plan? Like I heard like education, I heard, reaching out to community partnerships as far as like, but I'm just looking at, there's so many great organizations that are willing to like provide trees for families. That's, because that's always going to be like a thing, like educating, like we can give them trees, but how do we educate them? How do we give them the right trees that will grow in these areas? So I don't know, I just know there's a desire, like the communities that I work with, right? Like that's really big right now is planting.
Well, Dave brings up a really good question as I was beginning to research this, I looked at a bunch of other cities, urban forestry plans, and Dave's correct. Vancouver was way ahead of the curve, and they have one of the best urban forestry programs around. And I believe they have the head urban forester. I think they have a couple arborists, certified arborists, and one of their, I think the 4th person they have is the community outreach person that works with the community to spread the information on the urban forest and disseminate that education. And they also have, and I don't know if it's a commission or a board call it a tree board, but they have a tree board. That's all they deal with is the urban forestry and the trees. And they meet monthly and they're very involved. So they coordinate that with the education and the outreach, and they have a tree board. I mean, they are top notch as far as how they're doing it. They were way ahead of the curve, and they're somebody we should look at to try to get closer to, because they're doing it right and they do a really good job. So.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Thanks, everyone.
Let's see, next up, system plan update.
Everybody, welcome to Ryan and Steve for our system plan updates.
Good to see you all. This is going to be really brief because we're in the middle of a lot of things. And our team is developing a lot of background information. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go over the website.
We planned the lawnmower right now.
And I'm not joking, it always happens.
We have the mowers coming out here in just a minute.
I was texting maintenance, they get over here quick.
So you'll notice that there's some postcards out, and I'm gonna pass these around. So, sorry if you can't see it, Dana, can't see them, but we have some postcards out. I'm gonna leave a whole bunch here for you all. This is our online survey. We started this on September 1st for the second phase of our engagement for the Parks and Recreation System Plan. It's actually in 8 languages. And the survey has actually been translated into 8 languages. So I'm gonna just go through the website and show you how we've structured things, where there's some information you can start to dig into, and just show you the engaged piece. By the end of the week, we are expecting to have our equity analysis of our system completed, a draft, and then also an existing conditions report. I don't really love that term, but it's just looking at the overall system and where is everything. So our technical team is working on that, and we're supposed to get a rough draft report by the end of the week. And then our engagement team is in the middle of watching the survey. They check it every week. We have right now it started on the 1st. I will tell you that with this new approach and using Engage Hillsborough, we've had a few hiccups. So we only have 300 responses so far. But we have our community engagement liaisons. As you can see that box over there, I have over 6,000 postcards. We've already sent out 3,000 postcards. So our community engagement liaisons, which are the foundation of our engagement, especially to our vulnerable communities, are out right now pushing the survey. So I'm going to show you how easy this is. And hi Dana, it's nice to see you. I'll show you the postcard real quick. The artwork. This is something else I just want to let you know. That's the front of the postcard, and then we have the 7 different languages. We actually have a portion of our, we actually have 8 languages. It's Chinese traditional, and then Chinese, I think it's, I forgot what we call it. No, it's more simplified Chinese. So all you do is type in Hillsborough Park System Planning, and it takes you right to our well, it doesn't take you right to the page. And anyway, hold on a second here. So we have our system plan page here, and this over there. And we're developing artwork for the visionary piece that is all done through AI. So we can actually show diversity, what it's going to look like in 50 years, show what our system's going to look like. So a lot of our artwork is being developed through this whole AI process, at least for the plan and brief. We have This little QR code for the entire project will go right to this page. And as you can see, you can pick the language. We're doing Spanish, Russian, traditional Chinese, simplified Chinese, Vietnamese, Hindi, and Arabic. And the standard has been 6 languages. We were trying to do it 11 this year, but we really had to kind of rethink how to translate that because they're very difficult to translate from English. So you can click here and go right to your language of surveys. This is the project page. There will always be engagement opportunities at the very top. And this QR code will go, we have 45 posters being made for in the parks, outdoor, and then probably another 30 that we're going to pass out around the city. Any engagement we have, you'll be able to snapshot your phone and go right to it. And it'll be right here on the site. We have updated the site. I'll let you all take some time to look at it at your leisure. But we also have started to provide a lot of the system plan. One of the most important pieces of the system plan is to get it adopted or get the comp plan, the city's comp plan amended to include goals, policies, action items within the system plan. So we're starting to, out of being fully transparent, as we promised the community, putting all of our work on here for the community to look at. So we have our relevant citywide goals and policies, and then park related, and you get a small analysis. It's more for the people that want to be nerdy and dig into it. And then we also put links to all of the plans that we're referencing. We have a few more that are going to go up. In the last month, we have started our community advisory committee, and we have about 17 members. We had our first meeting. It's videotaped, it's online, it was August 10th. You can watch it here, and our next community advisory committee meeting is the 21st, so next Thursday. And we again will videotape it. You can watch it online, and then we will have like a summary. The engagement staff will put together a summary. We're also in the process of putting together our inter and intra agency advisory committee. That's all the different departments as well as other agencies around the region. That's hopefully getting out in 2 weeks.
How did you form your citizen committee?
So what we did is we have the Community Engagement Liaison Program. It's PKS International is our engagement firm. We had them recruit. So what we've done is we took a step back and let our engagement liaisons recruit members. And if you can have time to watch it, there's amazing people on there. And they're all excited about getting postcards out and getting the survey going. So they were primarily the folks that put together the advisory committee. Typically in projects like this, I would go out, I wanted to change things and really make this more of a community-driven approach. And typically I would go out and recruit people that I know or I've heard of, so we switched around a little bit. Yeah, we're really trying to do things differently and take that next step. So we have that meeting coming up, and then we'll have our inter and intra-agency advisory. We're about to start connecting we're working with planning right now and figuring out what that process looks like for adoption. And we're working to figure out what we're going to start going to. I'm going to look at Raheem and say, I want to go to the executive team soon. And we're going to connect with the executive team, planning commission, and city council. We're just trying to figure out what is the appropriate approach to that. So one more thing, anytime we also have our new engagement platform, Engage Hillsborough. We did, the survey is going through our engagement provider because they're updating information every week and analyzing it so that they know what communities to get out to, what communities have not been heard from, and make sure that our community engagement liaisons are getting out to different community groups versus just having whoever just applies for it. So we do have our Engage Hillsborough site, which again, Cindy and the team have been amazing. Everything you get on our project page is on the city's Engage Hillsborough website. We'll have more opportunities versus just this survey. And I encourage you to take the survey. It's going to be different. It's not asking you about like, do you want Ferris wheels in the parks, things like this. This is more of a qualitative approach that will help feed us information on how we're going to ask for phase 3 when we do focus groups and we do a citywide event, which is going to be probably about November. Here you can see we have all the different languages. It'll take you right to the language of your choice. And then we also have the timeline, where we have an updated timeline. In fact, I'm going to go over that real quick with you, and then I will stop speaking. So right now we're in August, September. This is really where we're doing September through October. We're going to continue to do our survey. We will decide if we extend it for 1 week or not, depending on the responses. But right now we haven't planned to shut off on October 1st. The middle of October, we'll have an analysis of, about October 15th, we will have an analysis of all the data that we've collected. And we are working right now at looking at all the previous engagement that's occurred throughout the city and all the different city plans that you'll hear on our website. And then right now, the technical team is actually pulling together the background information, and we're starting to put together the visioning piece about what is, here's my little geeky thing I love. We're gonna have a map that shows what does Hillsborough Parks look like in 2084. And we're working on quite a few interesting taglines. Hillsborough Green is coming up, and really thinking about how are we looking at our system in a more holistic manner. So they're already doing work based on what we're getting from team. And we're still on track to have a draft plan by February through March. The adoption process is a whole different thing. So once we get a draft plan, we have to go through an adoption process, and we're really pushing for the adoption of the plan at the end of the fiscal year. And we started working with planning on that. We're figuring out those details. So there's the update. I'm going to leave a bunch of postcards. I would love it if you pass it out to your neighbors, and I'd love to take any questions.
Okay, so with the survey, is there a quantity of people responding that makes a survey valid? Like, so 50, I don't think so enough, right? Like, that's not enough to impact like the direction of something. But
so this is a really interesting conversation we had within our team. Statistically valid surveys are a very traditional approach. There's one little problem with statistically valid surveys. It's usually landline. We're starting to get into cell phones now, and it really hits one demographic. And so, and statistically valid surveys now are very expensive. One 10-question survey is about $45,000. So what we've done in the original, remember there's been 2 different contracts going on here. In the original contract, we calculated what number we need to get to be statistically close to a statistically valid survey from specific demographic types. Now, the issue we're running into is the federal government doesn't track all the demographic types of the demographics that we're looking at. So there's going to be some outliers like the LGBTQ, and that's not tracked. It's just kind of out there. So we're focusing on what census data we have and making sure that that's why we're checking it every week, because if we're not getting enough Indigenous community members based on our statistics, then our cell is going to need to go out and really work harder to get our Indigenous community members to participate. That's how we're approaching it. There's a lot of agencies that are still pushing statistically valid surveys, but they're getting more traditional responses. So I hope that makes sense in our
A
approach.
little bit. Do we reach out to local community, I guess, groups that, like, so here, manager, you run this organization, you know, get this out to your people? Like,
Yeah, and that's what our cells are doing, and I community engagement liaison, we just call them cells. That's what they're doing. We're also working with, we have a budget put aside, and it's directly to go to nonprofit organizations. And we've actually identified, we're going with very small nonprofit organizations, because typically the larger nonprofit organizations, we don't necessarily get the same. One, the money helps out these smaller groups, and they have a very direct connection to a specific community group. So we're actually in the process of hiring them or contracting them to do outreach as well. So we're trying really hard to like figure out how do we get to our minority and underserved community members. And our engagement liaisons, we have, I think, 13 different groups covered just with them. Does that answer you?
Yeah, a little bit, I think.
I mean, it's complicated and it's,
As a soccer family, right, like I would love to see this come through the soccer organization. Like, here, families, if you use the parks, here's a survey, help contribute. And I've never received that, ever.
So what we're also doing is we just started advertising on Facebook page. So, and having Cindy and I have been working on this all week last week. We're starting to push out to Facebook posts and Instagram posts. And hopefully what we can do is create something that can be pushed around to different community groups. Now, remember, we're really focusing on marginalized community groups, not specifically only. And this is something that we've had to have discussions with our engagement team. It's like, but we're really making sure that we're boosting those voices. We are putting, we'll have posters, I have them being right now in all of the parks, multiple posters in the parks. And if you all have lists of groups that you would like me to email, I would love to do that.
I was just thinking, what are like the traditional ways of, I don't know, the Latino community responding to surveys? And I mean, first of all, like we do have, like Shoe Park is a park where it's very engaging. But I think if you work with like not necessarily nonprofit, but organizations that are very connected to the community and just have them also push out the importance of the survey, that would be helpful. But I know it's a load, like it's a huge way to try to get people to respond. Because even with the Calle 10 conversations, it's been really hard to get community input, so.
And that's why we've been, so our cells are connected to the community and they're supposed to be doing, we've had a few technical issues. That's why we might extend this a little bit, just because of the types of websites and in H Hillsborough, this is like the newest, biggest project being put on there. So we're having quite a few technical issues. I still have hair. But that's also what the cells are trying to do is connect to those, like the Hillsborough School District. And even getting flyers out of the Hillsborough School District. So I invite you all to provide us with our community advisory committee gave us such a great, they're actually picking up these next week and take them to Intel. And we have ins in some of these other places too. So if you know of specific groups, let me know. I can send an email out with the postcard essentially and ask them to take the survey. I also have a Spanish specific one coming out that's going to go to M&M Marketplace and go around the neighborhood. So we're making that one right now.
I mean, it could be as easy as, and I know it's not as easy, but like if you want a table at the El Grito and have multiple ways of families taking the survey, not only paper, but I've seen like posters and then people just put like a sticky note or things like, so just have have multiple ways of trying, and not everybody is, can write and read. So that's another thing to think about.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? We're getting there.
I think it's just hard. I mean, like I said, I work with the Indigenous community, and so this is something that's on my like radar right now, but Metro is also behind us and all these other, they just want surveys. And I think what's hard is like, when you're giving these surveys, it's like, they're saying, are they gonna listen, right? Because they've given their voice a lot, but they've not really listened. So it's like having those tangible examples of like, here's what a voice did to change, right? Like to make that change, because I feel like we get these surveys. Like I have a forestry survey that I'm working on. I have Metro Parks for PCC Rock Creek, right? I have all these surveys. So here I'm like inundating, and here's one more, right? And some of them, to be honest, they give them an incentive to be a part of it.
And
right?
there's a chance to win a couple of gift cards on this too.
Yeah, so I mean, that's good, you know, and I think that's great, but on the other hand, like I said, I mean, I did one where I could say, if you participate, you get this amount, right?
Yeah.
Just already accounted, so not only their time, 'cause that's the other part, right? Like, even just having like this will take, how long is the survey gonna take, right? Because I'm asking them for their time, and I know right now time is so valuable.
Yeah.
So that's always having that, it's gonna take 5 minutes, or it's gonna take 3 minutes, or here's what to expect. Because I just, yeah, I don't know. I know this only from personal experience that right now, like I said, I've got 3 surveys that everyone wants their opinion. So even like collaboratively working, you work with the Forest Service or Metro, like they have some of that information. Like I pulled in community groups where we've had dinner and we've discussed these exact topics of what are they looking for, and they have it. I mean, they have these items like kind of projective, here's what we want. So it's like, how many times do they, because I think that's what they're kind of saying is, how many times do we have to say this?
Yeah.
We have to say it to all these different organizations. I mean, maybe that is what they have to do.
And that's the hard part, is how do we, this is all about relationship building. This project really, the foundation is relationship building.
Yes.
And creating long-term change, equitable change. And the difficulty we have is, how do we connect and make those relationships and come back to the community? And we've been talking about that a lot. How do we come back to the community and say, this is what we're doing? We've heard you, we've actually listened, this is what we're doing. And this survey is really different in that it asks some not very specific, like, what park amenities do you have? I mean, we're beyond going and saying, hey, what park amenities do you want? We're asking, how do you feel safe in parks? I think that's one of the questions. And does this park space, do you feel served by parks? Do you know what so we're asking a lot of different questions, but you made an excellent point. It's like, there is fatigue, like question fatigue, because it's a great thing to check the box, right? A lot of agencies are checking the box. And we're trying to say, we're not checking the box, and we have to prove it, right? Over the long run, we're not checking the box, we're actually making change. And we'll have some more reports out. And then there's going to be phase 3, which is going to be very specific focus groups and a lot more opportunity for the community to be pretty honest about how they feel and what they want. And things like that. So I really appreciate everything that you all are telling me to.
One last thing you said, and I think it's brilliant that you have a budget for taking to these nonprofits to get them to do the surveys. That's something different, to have a budget for that. How do you determine, is it like, if you can get us 50 surveys, we'll give you this much money, or how do you?
Well, and so I'm leaving that up to my engagement Payne. She told me that she's the general of engagement. I leave it, and so there is something. Just a little hint. Actually having my engagement team work with nonprofits, there is actually a savings there, because she can work and figure out exactly what they can provide So there's also cost savings. We have set aside money. I'm trying to work with NAMI and the two nonprofit organizations for houseless homeless individuals here in Hillsborough. We even set money aside for that to have focus groups and supplement their organizations and get information, and we're trying not to be extractive, which is really, really hard. We're trying to be collaborative. But when you've been in an extractive society for so long, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Yeah. And the survey can come off as very extractive. So I encourage you to take it. Please let me know what you think, because we have opportunities to adjust. I would really appreciate it.
I'd love to see, like from the outcomes of the survey, like as we're looking at projects over the next few years, like this was a project based on feedback from the 2023 surveys. So, and I haven't seen that before. I'd love to make sure we incorporate that.
So I'm not going to show you because it's really rough. I promised my consultant I wouldn't show you. This is my timeline. But we actually, we started the equity framework and started the questions about, so all projects, essentially the idea is all projects go through a sieve, to kind of shake through these projects meet all the equity goals of the city. And it doesn't mean that the project goes away. It's just if it doesn't hit all 5 or whatever, then maybe it goes a little bit low. So we're creating this equity decision framework within the system plan, and they've already started working on it. And really asking some really great questions around, well, I won't go into too much more because they're still kind of designing things, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
It's good to see you all. It's been a little while.
Was this AI generated, this art on the front?
It
reminds
was.
me of the.
It was
Seurat painting.
Well, so that's the other thing. It was a Seurat paint. We thought it was a Seurat painting. And this is why trying to be thoughtful is we realized, do we know the history of Seurat? So we actually had it changed because we don't know the actual history of Seurat and political views and things like that. So those are the kinds of questions we're always asking. But yeah, we'll have a lot more AI driven artwork. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Ryan.
And I'm gonna leave a bunch. I wanna see those cards out.
We will push them out and send some reminders, so.
And of course, if you have groups you want me to send, please send me the links or send it to Dave.
We will send some reminders to Forrest. That's a great idea to help. We can help. You can all help us. We can think outside the box, get these to people that we want their input.
Okay. So do you want to just fly into our quick reports?
Yeah, can you do that?
1 minute or less, and we'll go with the first order again, Raheem, Ken, Nancy, Sean, and then me. So 1 minute report updates. Raheem.
Nothing major. At a future Parks Commission meeting, I'd like to bring an update on the city's strategic plan. So I'll work with Dave.
Thank you. Okay, I might steal a few good seconds from his minute there. Let's see here. Okay, so maintenance is very busy at about here. With the kids back in school, they are starting to do some of our broadleaf spraying out in the parks because the park is busy right now. So trying to get the weeds under control. We're also getting our fountains winterized. So you'll see some of those coming off. I think some are already off right now. We will leave some of our freshwater fountains off a little bit longer. But this is the month that we tend to get those wound down. As you can imagine, this brand new park and playground behind me, it's incredible. It's also a lot of maintenance effort for our staff, especially when we have, I don't know, 100 kids a day with shirtfuls of sand walking around, dumping it all over the place. That's been definitely a challenge, but yeah, such an amazing part of it. And our maintenance crews are happy to be part of it. And then just a real quick update, I mentioned previously about the parks cost of service rate that's going to be happening, which will essentially have consultants coming in and looking at all of our activities and our programs, and what we charge for them, what they actually cost us to provide, things like that. The Parks Commission will be involved in that process as we go, especially once we get down to kind of talking about cost recovery, philosophies and things like that. Right now, the RFP for the consultants is out on the street. We're expecting those to be coming back to us in a couple of weeks here, and then we'll be making a selection and then be engaging with all of you the next couple of months on that topic. So just a heads up that's coming. Kick it on to the next person.
Thanks. So 2 weeks ago, Friday, I had the opportunity to take a walking tour with Carl Leclerc, our public art supervisor. And we went out to Root Bridge Park and saw Wapito woman who is now in her home at Root Bridge Park. It's been removed from this building and it's been installed into Root Bridge Park. It's along the walkway. There's a pathway behind the river house, and it's so beautiful. And Carl and his team were very much in close conversation with Travis Stewart, who's a Native American artist, and the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde about how to site her appropriately. And she's actually facing out to the river in the wetlands where the Wapito is growing. And it was really very moving actually to go out there and to spend some time. And so we're working with the tribe on a dedication ceremony, and we have yet to land on a particular appropriate time because they're doing a lot of powwow season, and so we're working on the appropriate date, and they'll certainly be let in the know when we have the know. Also, the M&M Marketplace mural by artist Lee Tay was completed. It's huge. It's 3 times the size that I originally thought it was going to be. It's beautiful. Talks about community. It talks about family. It's a welcoming visual to all the cultures that celebrate at M&M Marketplace, and are represented there. There'll be a dedication ceremony there coming in October. That'll be Sunday, October 8th, and you'll be invited 2 to 4 on Sunday, October 8th. It's called Together We Have a Bright Future. It's beautiful. The Chute Park public art is still in process. They did a call to artists, and they're actually recirculating that call to artists. They need to do a broader sweep. It was limited to the Pacific Northwest. Now I think they're doing a national call. I could go on, but I know we're short on time. Dave's showing me his phone, so I'm going to kick it over to Sean. Very brief.
Minutes so fast. I think you're all aware that Shark is on a shutdown through the 17th, but their lobby is open from 3 through 4 for registration, and anybody needs to come in for information. HVAC systems being cleaned, pool being drained indoors, repainted, stairs being rebuilt with a slide, having to cut out old metal that's rusted over the years and welded in new just to do our regular maintenance. Urge you to stop by and say hi to the folks there. They're all over the place, but it's kind of exciting time, and it's quiet for a change in the building, so they're taking advantage of that. I'll cut my list down a little bit. I will share with you, and we'll bring more information if this comes around, but we're piloting a project with working with Hoboken School District and working, I want to say, I'm going to get this last name, Mahan, I want to say that's the wrong name, that's a city employee, but Courtney Gibbs, excuse me, with HSD on working with providing programs through our financial assistance to families experiencing homelessness. And there's 230-ish families in the school district and 100 plus youth, unaccompanied youth in the school district that are in some sort of homelessness situation. So we're excited about it. We're not sure. We're working, we're developing it. I just want you to be aware of that because it won't be a program that's heavily, marketed or anything like that. It'll be very confidential, and we'll be working with the school district correctly. So I'll bring you some updates on that, but I'm excited to offer, and it should be through our entire system, just like our regular financial assistance program. So if they want a membership, they want to take a play class, they want to be in an activity,
they can do that will be able to provide that. So more to come. With that, I'll cut it short there. Thank you.
So I realized I haven't shared with you that we lost a wonderful employee to Multnomah County, Sarah Delavan. After 20 or 20 plus years with the city, is now a manager for Multnomah County. I think it's in juvenile justice. And Sarah started here working at Shark as a lifeguard and swim instructor, and then she worked for many years at the front desk at Parks Admin. And then she became the volunteer coordinator and did that for many years. And then during COVID, we needed somebody to backfill some work, so we put her into a 6-month assignment that became a 1-year assignment that grew into a 2-year assignment. And I stretched her a little too far because she got so many skills. She parlayed it into a great new job, seriously, on a resume. Because I turned a lot of the work we've done with M&M Marketplace over to Sarah to manage, because I got myself in over my head. And she could take the pieces, run with it, pull the groups together, pull the work together. So we're so happy with Sarah. And obviously it's a huge loss for us. So we have to figure out how to fill those big shoes. So great news for Sarah. But it's always hard when we lose good employees. So we've got some recruiting to do. So that's my 1 minute update.
What is that position going to be?
Well, that's a good question. We had just pivoted her back to overseeing the volunteer program, and then maybe try to do that kind of half-time, and then keeping her available half-time to work on really special projects. She worked with you on the naming and parks projects. She worked on the M&M project. And you know, it's really important to have a special projects manager that can just go where the need needs to be. So I'm kind of figuring out how to shape that and recruit for it. So.
Commission comments. Dana? Thank you. All right. Darius?
No comments. No comments.
Comments?
Great. I want to say thanks for everybody's time, and then just going right along with 4 volunteer opportunities. Did you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have lots of special events coming up
1 minute.
this fall. So this weekend is El Rico. Let me know if you would like to serve in a capacity there. Following weekend is Orinka Fest. So let us know there as well. We always need people to help with the beer stein holding contest. That's huge. And then, yeah, it's great. And then we are doing something called Hidden Creek Haunted Teen Night, and that's October 27th. And we're partnering with the staff at Hidden Creek, Ohana, and really specifically a fun event for teens. So we'd love to have you come out and help with that. That's October 27th. And then there are a few other events that I'm not directly involved with, the Harvest 5K and Applepalooza. I'm sure any volunteer support would be welcome.
Well, thanks, everyone. And with that, meeting adjourned. Thanks.
Right, and we're all wishing Lynn a wonderful vacation starting in a few days. For